Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third annual Compassionate Care of Carpinteria event, The Light Shines Ahead. Virtual for the second year and virtual for the last year. We hope to see you all in person next year. My name is Winfred van Wingeren, and helping me out this evening is my partner in fundraising, and he happens to be my brother, Ed van Wingeren. We hope you can all raise your glass, I'm sure you all have one, and raise your glass to Compassionate Care of Carpinteria. Cheers. Folks, this is the fundraiser for Compassionate Care of Carpinteria, whose mission is to care for anyone experiencing the impact of a life-threatening illness or grieving the death of a loved one. This means that all of us will be affected by this and will need compassionate care at some point in our lives. So thank you for spending the evening with us tonight. Ed, can you tell us about this wonderful organization?
You bet. Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in. Compassionate Care of Carpinteria got its start 4 years ago through the hard work of a committee of amazing people who have volunteered their time to help bring Hospice of Santa Barbara to the people of Carpinteria. This passionate team is made up of the following volunteers: Mary Beth Cardy, Chair; Cheryl Berkowitz, Charles Caldwell, Jerry Cardy, Chris Davis, Joyce Donaldson, Christina Ferguson, Tina Fanucchi-Frontado, Mandy Gokong, Mike Lazaro, Adriana Maraquin, Angelica Ornelas, Cheryl Puyat, and Renee Van Kirk. Every good fundraiser needs a thermometer goal. And you can see at the top of your screen that thermometer. Also, the green donate button on the right side of your screen. We've set a goal for $50,000 for this event, and it looks like we've already raised more than $9,000 so far. You'll have the opportunity to donate later in the program after the question and answer with Cinder. We'll count on meeting that goal. 100% of all dollars raised will directly benefit the program in Carpinteria. 0% goes to overhead. We'll be picking winners from our opportunity drawing at the end of the program. Opportunity drawing is fancy for a raffle. So stick around for that. We have great prizes such as the Care and Compassion Basket, which includes a $50 Cork Tree Seller's Gift Certificate, a Trader Joe's themed bag with a $50 Trader Joe's gift card, and a one-of-a-kind abstract acrylic on canvas by Chris Gokong. All prizes will come with a bottle of wine from Rincon Mountain Winery. Special thanks to Mandy and Chris Gokong, Trader Joe's, Riva Stewart, Tina Fanucchi-Frontado, Autumn Brands, and Rincon Mountain Winery for donating these amazing prizes in our opportunity drawing.
Folks, we have a wonderful program for you tonight. First, David Salberg, CEO of Hospice of Santa Barbara, and Adriana Maraquin will share a few thoughts about the program. Then, longtime Carpinterian and event co-chair Mary Beth Cardy will introduce our keynote speaker, Cinder Sinclair. Finally, we'll have a question and answer session with Cinder and Mary Beth Cardy. So if you have questions for Cinder, enter them in the chat box on your screen. And just a reminder that Cinder's book, titled My Wild and Precious Life, can be ordered online at nonprofitconnect.org. 25% of all sales today will go to Compassionate Care of Carpinteria. You'll find more information on how to place your book in the chat. And now, it's my great honor to introduce David Salberg. David's been CEO of Hospice of Santa Barbara for almost 6 years. Since he came aboard, they have doubled the number of people they serve and significantly increased services to marginalized communities. Thank you, David. Adriana Maraquin has been the program manager for Compassionate Care of Carpinteria since its beginning 4 years ago. She's been working with local health and nonprofit organizations to increase awareness and access to compassionate care of Carpinteria's free services. Thank you, Adriana. David and Adriana, take it away.
A heartfelt thank you to both of you, Ed and Wynn, for hosting us again this year. We're so grateful to have you. And also a big thank you to our Compassionate Care of Carpinteria Steering Committee, led by our beloved Mary Beth Carty. Thank you so much to this team that has truly been the driving force of this third year of our annual event. So thank you. A big warm thank you also to Dr. Cinder Sinclair for being our keynote speaker. Thank you, Cinder. Special gratitude to our sponsors who made this evening possible. Let me share who they are. Our shooting star sponsors are Beth Cox and Grant Cox Enterprises, Inc., and NS Ceramic. Our lucky star sponsors are Mandy and Chris Gokong and Cresco Labs. Our bright star sponsors are Bryant and Sons Jewelry, Carpinteria Women's Club, Jill Castro, Tina Fanucci Frontato and Greg Frontato, Carol and Alan Koch, Kay and Jay Madden, Milpus Motors, Okiali Fine Eyewear, and Lisa Thomas. Such gratitude we have for all of them. And lastly, I want to thank all of you for your patience in our beginning tonight and for being with us. All of you have supported our Compassionate Care of Carpinteria program, which provides a full range of services, including grief counseling, patient care services, volunteer support, and community education. Here to talk about some of this very profound and impactful work is my colleague, Adriana Morrow-Quinn, who coordinates our Compassionate Care of Carpinteria activities. Adriana, welcome.
Thank you, David. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm saddened that we're not in person, but I did see some familiar names in the chat. So thank you for joining us tonight. As I thought about tonight, I thought I'd share just a little bit how our programs and services have changed now with COVID and its new normal, right? So kicking us off with patient care services and our volunteers, we did initially provide everything virtual. We weren't in person. Just recently, we've started seeing our patients again in person, but the team did everything virtually, everything from translation at virtual doctor's appointments to virtual case management. And initially, we thought about relationships. Would these relationships be hurt, right, as new patients came on? And the beautiful thing about technology is no, relationships were not damaged. We actually were able to connect just as deeply with our new patients as we had with the patients that we'd had prior to COVID, which was a great surprise. With our spiritual care, Kristen Rome, our spiritual counselor, has done fantastic work. She's been able to sit with the folks who have passed and the folks who remain after the passing. And so just very thankful for the work that they're doing as a team. And of course, our volunteers. I couldn't not mention our volunteers. This year marked the highest number of volunteer hours ever recorded in the history of Hospice of Santa Barbara and Compassionate Care of Carpinteria combined. And that's just, I'm so humbled to see that. Thank you so much to our volunteers if you're joining us tonight, not only for our patients, but also for everything that you do for the organization. As for our adult and children bereavement, that also continues virtually. And of course, some challenges with that, right? Initially, there was no privacy at home, technology challenges, you name it, we faced it. But again, it was almost a double-edged sword, right? Because just as we heard those challenges, we also heard that folks were able to go deeper much faster because they were in a safe place in their home, right? So that also continues virtually, both for adults and children.
And also, Adriana, huge gratitude to Diana Rigby, who's the superintendent of our Carpinteria Unified School District. and all the school district staff who work so closely with our program in Carpinteria.
Exactly. Big shout out to Diane and her staff. And I also want to name Carla Curry, Director of Special Education for Carpinteria Unified. She's hosting monthly mental health staff meetings with all of the district staff, which is just fantastic. I've had an opportunity to join in on some of these meetings. And David, if I had children, I would actually want them in the Carp Unified School District just because of that wraparound care that they offer all of their kids. So thank you to all of the schools. Thank you for the amazing work that you're doing. As I think about the programs and everything that we've been able to accomplish, of course, we couldn't have done it without our partners. So I'll just name a few here. Of course, the Carpinteria Children's Project continues to be our home base. We continue to have our offices there. And early on, they were a great connector to seniors and food for those families. So thank you to the Carpinteria Children's Project staff. The City of Carpinteria also for their ongoing support for all of our programs, and most recently the Carpinteria Public Health Clinic in support with Jeanette Gumber, the clinic administrator, and also Vando Reynoso, both of which believe truly in the work that we're doing, and just super excited to be working with them. We've actually identified a few hundred families who may benefit from our services, and our vision is really that when a family needs a service, they go into the clinic and they're immediately referred over. So very excited for that partnership. More needs to come as that evolves. So thank you to those partners. And just lastly, just to wrap us up here, when I think about COVID in 2020, the word that comes to mind, the word I choose to think about is innovation, right? 2020, this past year, truly made us think differently about our services and our programs. And one of the programs that I'm super proud of is the Illuminate Speaker Series. We actually, as an organization, wanted to support our community in more ways during this pandemic because, of course, it was difficult, right? We all experienced grief differently, not just the loss of a loved one, but also the love of our routines and our work and our job and all of that. So we developed this speaker series just wanting to support our local community. And we've had a variety of speakers, some of which have included Rotary Joan Halifax, Sharon Salberg, Pico Iyer, Janae Johnson, the list goes on. Really fantastic speakers, all of which have been inspiring and educational. And if you haven't checked them out, I encourage you to go to the website. There's recordings both in English and Spanish for you to check out. But David, if I can just quickly ask you, who's been your favorite speaker and why?
With over a year of monthly speakers, I would have to go with Frank Ostaseski. And why? He founded the Zen Hospice in San Francisco, which was initially an AIDS hospice back in the 1980s and 90s. And I started my work connected to hospice doing AIDS work back in those years locally. And so I'm always tremendously moved by Frank and his talks.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. See, I couldn't have picked one speaker. They've all been amazing in different areas. So thank you for sharing that. And also
Great.
just a fun note, even though this program started just locally to support our community, we've actually been able to reach folks in 46 states and 58 countries, which is fantastic. So just a big shout out to the production team behind that. They do a lot of great work to offer these for free for the community. So if you haven't seen them, check them out and stay tuned for an upcoming list for this new year. And also another program that emerged out of this time was the Mi Vida, Mi Voz, or My Life, My Voice project. Really intended to focus on our Spanish-speaking community and making sure that they're aware of the resources available to them. So we've partnered with local radio stations, have more than 550 champions who represent over 180 organizations, including our local Carpinteria organization. So you may have seen a little flyer with our logo down on Linden. There's some businesses participating on Linden and also through the Carpinteria Children's Project food distribution. This is being distributed. And so again, just another way for us to reach all of our community members, especially those who speak Spanish. And lastly, just to wrap us up, I want to touch on our advanced care planning program. Again, the pandemic paved way for us to talk about this important topic of end-of-life wishes and what our medical wishes would be during that time. And so as an organization, we have launched our English and Spanish Advanced Care Planning Initiative, where we're hosting workshops, again, innovation, right? Both virtual and in person, adapting to the times. We're super excited to host another workshop in Carpinteria this coming spring, so stay tuned. But in the meantime, if anyone watching would like to host a workshop for either your constituents or your staff in either English or Spanish, please contact us. We're happy to help. But David, that was a quick, very high-level overview of the work that we're doing. I'm sure I left out some details. I'm sure I left out some partners, but really just super thankful to be a part of this community. And I'm hoping that everyone tunes in, that you take advantage of these programs because they really are for the community to enjoy. So thank you so much, David. I'll turn it back to you.
Well done, Adriana. Thank you so much for that. And now I have the pleasure to turn it back over to Ed and Wynn to take us to the next part of our program. Thank you, Ed and Wynn.
All right, our next speaker doesn't need an introduction and has been an integral part of Carpinteria community for decades. Her energy and compassion for Carpinteria and other areas know no bounds. Mary Beth Carty is the Executive Director of the Natalie Orfala Foundation and has been a tremendous friend of Carpinteria. She is the Chair of Compassionate Care of Carpinteria Steering Committee. Thank you, Mary Beth. Take it away.
Thank you, Ed. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce our keynote presenter this evening, Dr. Cinder Sinclair. Cinder Sinclair is synonymous with nonprofit leadership for well over 40 years. She began her career in San Joaquin County, where she worked in child abuse prevention and founded 2 local nonprofits to meet the needs of farm workers in the San Joaquin Valley. She moved to Santa Barbara in 1995 to accept the position of CEO for Tres Condados Girl Scouts, and she held that position for 12 years. Then served as CEO for the Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics for another 5 years, and as CEO for Community Action of Ventura from 2016 to 2020. But when I met Cinder in 2008, she was living in Carpinteria and finishing up her graduate work at the University of Phoenix, earning her doctorate in management, and concurrently serving as Vice President of Wealth Management for Santa Barbara Bank and Trust. And together we started the Corporate Philanthropy Roundtable, engaging businesses to support our local nonprofit sector. Cinder is notably the founder of and lead consultant for Nonprofit Connect, a firm where she provides consulting services for nonprofits. She has produced her own TV show on TVSB that has featured over 150 community leaders called 805 Focus. And she writes a regular column in the News Hawk for over 10 years now, connecting dots. Cinder, believe it or not, has 13 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren between her 5 children to whom she is devoted. And she loves to travel, especially to places where she can find her bliss, cycling, skiing, kayaking, hiking, and roaming the world with her life partner, Dennis Forster. We're anxious to hear from Cinder, but I want to remind you, if you have questions for her, simply drop them in the chat. And with no further ado, I bring you Cinder Sinclair.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And welcome. Oh my gosh, I have been looking forward to being with you ever since I got the call from Mary Beth asking me to meet with her and Charles so they could ask me if I would be part of this program today. And of course, I was eager to say yes because I knew it would give me a chance to tell you all about the powerful impact that Hospice of Santa Barbara has had on my life, and to invite you to find out more about Hospice of Santa Barbara, and of course to make a financial donation to include them in your charitable giving. So the Healing Angels of Hospice of Santa Barbara has blessed my life 2 times. The first time after the sudden death of my father, and the second time during and after the death of my son. And I can tell you that both times I was just submerged into darkness. But the very wonderful angels at Hospice of Santa Barbara transformed that darkness and really lit up my path with their loving light so I could find my way one step at a time. Now, this evening, I'll also tell you about how each of us can be a light for others, helping to shine a light on their path, even when the staggering blow of death visits us. So the first time I went to Hospice of Santa Barbara, well, it was kind of an accident, or maybe I should say it was out of frustration. It was 1998. I was serving as CEO for Girl Scouts of the Tri-Counties, living in Santa Barbara, and one morning I received a phone call saying that my dad had just died of a heart attack. I was not prepared. I was devastated. So I got in the car and drove down to Manhattan Beach where he lived. And so I put together his funeral and actually conducted the funeral and did all that, then brought myself back to Santa Barbara and just kept on working to do my duties with Girl Scouts. Well, I had this friend. She called and said, "Cinder, you really should go to hospice for some grief counseling." Well, I had never done anything like that before, so I just gave her a nice, polite answer and went on about my work. Well, she kept bugging me. "Have you called him yet? When's your appointment? Are you going to go see him? When's your grief counseling happening?" So finally, out of frustration, I thought, fine. So I called Hospice of Santa Barbara and made an appointment. And the day that I walked in for my appointment, guess what? I met Joanne Talbot. Now, I know many of the people that are watching this knew Joanne Talbot and know that she was an angel and a saint. And it was definitely my lucky day when I met her. And so for 5 months, I met with Joanne, and she helped me, process my father's death and the complicated relationship I had with him and all. And so I will be forever grateful to Joanne and to Hospice of Santa Barbara. Okay, now 14 years later, I'm serving as CEO for Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics. It's about 2012, and I'm living in Carpinteria. And my granddaughter, Ashley, called me one day to say that her father, my son, Rick, who was almost 52 at the time, was really, really sick, and everybody was worried about him. And she said she had arranged to have his doctor call me and give me a report. So the day that the doctor was going to call turned out to be also the board meeting for Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics. We were meeting at that beautiful SynCal facility. And so here we were in our meeting, and about halfway through, my phone was shut off, of course, the sound, but I felt it vibrate. And so I looked down, and sure enough, it was a 559 Fresno area code. So I quickly and quietly excused myself and pushed open those big doors there and walked out into the entry to take the call from the doctor. And here, his name was Dr. Marshall. He said, "This is Dr. Marshall, and I'm calling to give you a report on your son, Rick Rocker." And so he went on to say that my son had an advanced, he said, "Your son has an advanced case of liver cancer, and he doesn't have long to live." So he even said, "If I were you, I'd go to Fresno often to visit pretty soon." So I asked him, I said, "Do you think his long-time use of methamphetamine contributed to this cancer?" And he said, "Most likely it did." So, of course, I was pretty shaken after the phone call, but I quietly walked back into the board meeting and sat down, and everything was a blur after that, but thankfully somebody took some good notes. And so for the next 5 months then, I made many of those 4-hour drives to Fresno to visit with Rick, my son, and his family, and all the while, of course, trying to do all of my duties with Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics as their CEO. So I knew that Rick's 4 grown children and his wife Peggy and his siblings would need my support through this process. So my first thought was, I remembered how Hospice of Santa Barbara had helped me so much after my dad's death. So I thought, well, I remember they had these great brochures on everything you could imagine. They had brochures on the physical aspects of dying, like loss of appetite, on the emotional components of the dying process, on how to talk to each other and to the one who's dying. And I thought, man, I got to get me some of those brochures. I didn't think I needed an appointment, so I just drove up to hospice and went inside thinking they would, say, here's your brochures, and I'd be on my way. Well, once again, it was my lucky day. I walked in there, and there greeted me another hospice angel named Jim Hill. And so I very calmly explained to Jim that my son was dying of cancer, and I needed some of his brochures. And so he got a bunch of them together, and he said, I'll give you these brochures, but I want you to come and see me every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So I said, okay, fine. Took the brochures, and off I went. Well, the fact is, I did visit Jim Hill every Wednesday at 4 o'clock for 9 months. The first 5 months, while my son was dying, and 4 months afterwards, to process my own grief. And so, as you can imagine, I will always be grateful to Jim Hill and to Hospice of Santa Barbara for all of that healing. When I was visiting with my family, it was hard to have, that end of life conversation with anybody, because it felt like if we did that, we'd all be kind of admitting that Rick was actually dying. And we wanted to hold out hope that the chemo was going to cure his cancer. So we just kind of danced around it. We didn't, talk about it. But one day when I was visiting, Rick and I were sitting out on his outside couch, and he began to tell me how much he enjoyed his childhood and how much he appreciated how much I had, how I had supported him and his family for so many years. And then he started crying, and he said, he's almost 52 years old. He says, Mommy, can you take this away? Oh my gosh. I didn't know what to say, so I just held him, and we rocked back and forth for quite a while. That was pretty powerful stuff. So when I went there to visit, we tried to do normal things, like go out to some of his favorite restaurants. But it was like every time we did that, we had to hurry up, and as soon as we ordered our food, we had to hurry up and package it up and leave because he got nauseated, from the chemo. And it was so hard to see him wasting away. But it felt like if we stopped the chemo, it would be like giving up. So we just kept it all going. So I knew Rick would need an advanced healthcare directive. So I went to Hospice of Santa Barbara, got the papers, took them with me to my next visit in Fresno. And when I was there, I gave them to his wife, Peggy, and explained that, we have to fill these papers out. We have to decide who's going to be the healthcare agent. And nobody wanted to, they were sort of stunned. So I said, okay, well, I'm just going to leave these. You guys can look it over. And at my next visit, then, we will talk about it. So the next visit came, and I thought nobody had filled it out. But as I was getting ready to walk to my car, my son Baird walked me out, and he gave me the papers. They were all completed. I was thrilled. I said, Baird, who's the agent? He said, it's me. And he started crying. So out there on the driveway, there I was holding my 6'4" son while he cried, because I think in that moment when he signed it, he realized it was so fine. So I noticed over the next 5 months that each person came, to the realization that Rick was dying in their own way and in their own time. For Baird, I think it was when he signed that paper as the healthcare agent. For Peggy, Rick's wife, it was after she read one of the brochures. So I was having wine with a friend of mine at Santa Barbara Winery, and my phone rang. And it was Peggy, and she was crying and crying and crying. And she said she just read one of the brochures I had left with her and realized that Rick was dying. So I packed my bag and, went to Fresno the next day. So I knew it was time to prepare for Rick's funeral and write the obituary, and I tried to involve every person in the family in whatever way they felt comfortable. Or if they didn't want to be involved, that was fine too. And of course, Jim Hill helped, with every step of the way. We chose the headstone and the flowers, and we planned the reception and the actual service, wrote the obituary, all these things. So at one point, Rick was admitted to the hospital because he had internal bleeding. And so when I heard that, I packed my bag and left really early the next morning for Fresno because I was going to meet with the doctor at, I think, maybe 10 o'clock. And so I got there just in time, met with the doctor, and then for the next many days sat there at Rick's bedside with Peggy and just sort of, kept Rick company. Finally, he was released to the care of hospice, and they took him home. So I called family members and close friends to let them know that if they wanted to come and say goodbye to Rick, this was the time to do it. And so people began to arrive. And then I got this call from my son, Mike. And he said, "Mom, I'm driving up from San Diego and there's a whole lot of traffic. I don't know when I'm going to be there, but I'll be there." I said, "Well, Rick might not be alive by the time you get here." And then I remembered something that I read in one of those brochures. It said that hearing is the last sense to go when a person is dying. So I said, "Mike, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take my phone and I'm going to put it to Rick's ear. He won't be able to talk to you, but you tell him what you want to say to tell him goodbye." And it worked like a charm. Rick, of course, was unresponsive and all, but I know he heard. We each took turns telling Rick that it was okay for him to leave. And still, he lingered, and he was in so much pain, and I felt so bad. And finally I thought, I wonder if Peggy told him yet. So I asked her, and she started crying. She said, "No, I can't tell him because I'm not ready for him to go." And I said, "Peggy, he's in so much pain. He needs to hear from you that it's okay for him to go." She did, and he died shortly thereafter. So soon, the mortuary staff, 2 mortuary staffs, arrived with their gurney to put Rick on there and take him to the hearse. So I was walking along with 2 of my granddaughters. We were walking next to the gurney as they were wheeling him toward the hearse. And I saw this little piece of his beard sticking up out of the sheet, and I just couldn't take my eyes off it. I just focused on that. I thought, it was my last connection. And so, but then they put him in the hearse, and they slammed the door, and off they went. And this line from one of my favorite poems came to my mind: "Love went riding in a hearse that day." Don't you love it? So I met with Jim every Wednesday at 4 for the next 4 months to process my own grief. And so, as you can imagine, I am so grateful to Jim Hill and Hospice of Santa Barbara for lighting my every step. Hospice of Santa Barbara gave me light in the midst of my darkness and then equipped me to be light for others. And I invite you to do the same by finding out more about the vital work of Hospice of Santa Barbara so that you can light the way for others. So during the pandemic, I wrote my memoirs. It took me 6 months, 400 pages, 300 of which are photos. And I have to tell you, after I sent it to the printer, I thought, oh my gosh, do you really want people to know all this stuff about you? But it was hard to write all this personal stuff. and especially when it was painful, like chapter 10, that's about Rick's dying. But I knew it was important to do because it was important to get the story of Hospice of Santa Barbara out so people know how great they are in their important work. And I mean, it's hard, as you can tell, hard for me to talk about this tonight because it's so personal and so painful. But I know it's important to get the story of Hospice of Santa Barbara out there so that everyone can hear about their healing work and the fact that it's free to everyone, anyone who wants to use the services. And of course, because of that, they always need financial donations. And so I invite you to be quite generous in your donations tonight. So at the beginning of each chapter of my book, I put a quote from one of my favorite writers. So the first page of chapter 10, which is the chapter that talks about my son's dying process, is a quote from the Dalai Lama. Here's what he says. "Grief is the reminder of the depth of our love. Without love, there is no grief. So when we feel our grief, uncomfortable and aching as it may be, it is actually a reminder of the beauty of that love now lost." That Dalai Lama knows some things. So the last chapter of my book contains 10 lessons, lessons I've learned from life, so far. The second lesson is called Continuously Choose Joy. One of my favorite books is called The Book of Joy. It's actually a conversation between the Dalai Lama and Bishop Desmond Tutu. And in it, Dalai Lama explains, the way to heal our own pain is actually by turning to the pain of others. It is a virtuous cycle. The more we turn toward others, the more joy we experience. The more joy we experience, the more we can bring joy to others. The goal is to be a reservoir of joy, an oasis of peace, a pool of serenity that can ripple out to all those around you. Don't you just love that? So I am grateful to Hospice of Santa Barbara for bringing joy to so many people, including me. And I am grateful to each of you for tuning in this evening and for learning more about hospice and for all of the generous donations that you are giving. And so I will end with a little poem of one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver, and this is called Prayer. May I never not be frisky. May I never not be risque. May my ashes, when you have them, friend, and give them to the ocean, leap in the froth of the waves, still loving movement, still ready beyond all else to dance for the world. Thank you. Okay, Mary Beth, we've got some questions,
Cinder,
I think.
My goodness, you have really lived a life that is rich in adventure, and just listening to you embrace your own joy, it's quite inspiring. Of course, with that adventure came its share of sorrow and heartbreak and a lot of lessons. Mm-hmm. And all of those are captured in your book, which is entitled My Wild and Precious Life, a memoir of joy, grief, and adventures. So the title of your book comes from a beloved poem by Mary Oliver, whom you just quoted. This one is entitled The Summer Day. It includes this stanza. Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And I am wondering, what struck you in that poem that led you to adopt that particular line for your book and as your motto for living? I've noticed it's been in your signature for your emails for years. I'm just wondering, what did it summon for you?
I love that poem. I love every part of it. Yet that last line really appealed to me. And you're right, I've had it in my email signature for years. I think because it reminds me of how important it is to live life intentionally. I'm not just going to let it flit by, I'm going to be present and intentional about everything, because my life, like everyone's life, is wild and very precious.
Indeed it is. Thinking about loss, what does it do transformationally to a person In your case, did you feel that it diminished you or that it brought you increased depth of understanding or sort of a way of living larger or more expansively?
Yeah, I would say it's the latter. Yeah, you know, when someone dies, someone close to you like that, well, first of all, like with my dad, I was so surprised. I was shocked. It's like, wait, this happens to other people, not me. But it did. And especially when it happened with my son. Other people lose their kids, not me. But what it does is it's like it brings a mirror and shows you your own strength that you didn't even know you had. And so for me, yeah, I guess the death process has shown me that, man, I can do some stuff that I never thought I could, like support, you know, my whole family and that sort of thing.
True. I think it can, the act of losing someone can actually affect our own grip on life.
Right.
Whether we hang on tighter or we learn to let go. I mean, those are the lessons.
Yeah.
And I think you do approach those in your book in a really great way. So I want to ask you, what grounds you now? What are the activities, challenges, or relationships that really keep you going now?
Well, you know, what keeps me going now in my wild and precious life is, oh gosh, traveling with Dennis and our wonderful relationship every minute of every day, whether we're at home or whether we're going to, you know, the 5 years before COVID, Dennis and I visited 27 countries. Yeah, so, and when we go on a trip, we're riding bikes and we're kayaking and we're skiing and hiking and we're doing all these things. And so, yeah, that's what drives me now.
And I think the act of taking this experience and committing yourself to recording it for your family, for posterity, is really an example of that living intentionally. You took COVID and you made, you know, some lemonade, right?
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Cinder. I, along with everyone, appreciate you sharing your story, and I really appreciate you sharing your support of Hospice of Santa Barbara, of which Compassionate Care of Carpinteria is an initiative. We need all of our community to help keep this program going for the benefit of our community members, because not everybody can drive up the hill to Santa Barbara and receive the services that hospice offers, both compassionately and free of charge, and bilingually and biculturally. So again, thank you, my dear. I'm so pleased that you said yes, and I look forward to being a witness to some of the additional days of your wild and precious life.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, all right, everyone. Ed and I would like to thank the speakers, David, Adriana, and Mary Beth. But Cinder, thank you. What an inspiration you are to so many. And what passion and commitment you have to this work. And so thank you very much. It's been so gratifying to hear your story. So thank you. And now, folks, are we ready to do the big fundraiser for Compassionate Care of Carpinteria and do our paddle race? Ed, are you ready to party?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, well, let's raise some critical funds here. Support all the great work and programs in Carpinteria. Find that green button on the right of your screen, and let's use it often.
All right. So we're going to start with a $5,000 level of support. That is for those that are big and generous and that have the capacity to give in a big way. We would love to see who can donate at the $5,000 level.
Well, right now I'm seeing that Sheila Batson and this guy I know, Win Van Wingerden, have put up the first $5,000 of this evening.
All right. Well, thank you, Sheila. That is wonderful. Is there anybody else that can do a $5,000 pledge? If you'd like, you can do it over 5 months, $1,000 a month.
There you
go. No problem. You know, we accept them all. So, folks, just do it.
All right, and if you still need some time to think about that, we will take those contributions after the program as well. Right now, let's move to $2,500. What do you think? $2,500.
$2,500. I know there's people out there. Actually, we're in luck. I've got 4 people that are willing to do this. First of all, Nadia Lichichenko. Let's hear it for Nadia.
Hey.
Excellent. Then we have Pacific Dutch Group. Let's hear it for them.
All right.
Yeah. The Palmer Brothers. Let's hear it. Yeah. And then last, but definitely not least, Brother Ed. $2,500. Thank you, Ed. Are there any others that would like to do $2,500? Go ahead and touch that green button, put that finger on it, and tap it for $2,500. Well, thank you. We're going to move to $1,000.
All right. We already have the first one in, Jason Moriarty for $1,000. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And Cinder Sinclair and Dennis Foster for $1,000 as well.
Hey, Cinder, thank you. This is great. All right, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to do $1,000? Going once. Going twice?
We're not going once, we're not going twice. We're going to be patient, and we're going to let you hit that button for $1,000. But we also have the $500 category. Anyone for $500. Let's hear it.
All right, we are fortunate to have Yvonne and Kristen Van Wingeren doing $500. Woo! Let's hear it. Thank you, Yvonne and Kristen. Mary Beth Cardy for $500. Thank you very much, Mary Beth. All right, and folks, push that green button for $500. Who's there for us? Remember, compassionate care. We're all going to be needing this. And I'm sure a lot of you have already used compassionate care of Carpinteria or hospice. It's an incredible organization. I was so moved by what Cinder told us, her story. And so we all know we're going to get there or have been there. And so please support compassionate care of Carpinteria.
And I think what's important to realize also, what we've mentioned before, is that 100% goes to the cause, right? So there's no overhead, there's none of this money will be used for that. This truly goes to help the people of Carpinteria. So let's be generous, let's hit that green button up there and participate.
All right, have we seen the thermometer grow? You know, I'm hoping that thermometer is getting close to 50,000. That's our goal today, folks. So I'm hoping that we can see, we're seeing it there, 31,660. Oh, look at that. And we have Mandy Gokong at $500. Thank you, let's hear it. Thank you, Mandy. And Chris Frontado, thank you, also $500.
Right on.
Thank you. We're seeing that thermometer grow. We have less than 20,000 to go, so we're going to do lots of them at, do we have any others at 500? All right, we're going to move to $200. Ed, do you see any at 200?
I do. I see John and Janet Webb for $200.
All right. Thank you, John and Janet. Thank you.
All right. Jim and Ganilla DeArkland. $200.
Excellent.
Thank
Excellent.
you, Jim and Ganilla.
You know, I'm seeing that, are there any others there? I see a number of them on the screen there. Of course, Ed, you've got the good eyes there, so go ahead and read them. So, you know, I'm going to have to, Ken, look at Kenji at $200.
Right.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Right on.
Samantha Lockhart at $200. Thank you. And who else can do $200? All right. Now let's move to $100.
There we go. And here it's important, right? So if you are still there, if you're with us, and what we need is for you to participate, right? So hopefully at $100, but if you can't make $100, then make it $50 or $20 or $25. But it's great to see participation, right? So let's get as many people out there pressing that button, and you got to give till it hurts a little bit. Otherwise, you're not giving quite enough, right? So it's got to hurt a little bit. So let's push yourself for those extra dollars, and let's see if we can make that happen.
So again, folks, $5, $10, $50, $100 or more. We appreciate all your gifts, and Compassionate Care of Carpinteria is the better for it. And remember, 100% goes to the cause here. We have here Kimberly Ann. We have Tara Shahan. We have, I'm going to get a little closer here so we can see this. We have Dana Kelly. Very good. Let's hear it for Dana. We have Heather Stevenson. Let's hear it for Heather. Thank you. So again, Kimberly and is it Kratz? Yes. Let's hear it for Kimberly. Yeah. All right, then we have Dana Kelly. Thank you, Dana. Wonderful. For $100. Any others? Carla, Sister Carla. Thank you for $100. All right. Anybody else?
Let's keep it going, folks. We're getting a little bit closer.
Definitely.
We only have 15,000 to go.
We have
to Patty. Hit our goal.
We have Patty LaRusso for $100. Right. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
All right. So remember, folks, if you or anyone needs the free services of Compassionate Care of Carpinteria, you can find their contact info on the website. Please continue to push that green button, continue to give, and even after we're done tonight, please continue to find their website and donate to this most wonderful cause. We're next going to move to...
Yeah, let's do a little drawing. Let's do the opportunity drawing or raffle. Winnie, why don't you start?
All right, here we go. We have the Care and Compassion basket with a $50 gift certificate to Cork Tree Cellars, and it includes a wine from Rincon Mountain Winery. So here we go. Let's shake this up here. Eddie, you want to call the number? Why don't you pull it out?
All right, let's see this. We have Cresco Labs.
All right. Let's hear it for Cresco.
All right, and now we have the Trader Joe's dinner and a movie tote with $50 gift card to Trader Joe's, including wine from Rincon Mountain Winery.
All right, here we go.
We'll mix these up and go.
We'll pick a number here. All right, and this ticket, we all know Beth Cox. Yay! Beth, let's hear it for Beth. Thank you. All right, and the last one is the Chris Gokong's abstract acrylic canvas. It's called Passing Through. It includes also wine from Rincon Mountain Winery. So we're going to shake this up here. And Eddie, pull one out here.
Here we go. And the painting to Tina from Tato.
All right. Tina, look at that. Beautiful.
Okay. I know how to pick them.
Thank you.
That's great.
All right. Well, it's time to say goodnight. And we all want to thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful event. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you again, Cinder, for your most moving presentation. Again, there's always time to give, even right now, even after we finish tonight, or tomorrow or the next day. Please continue to give.
All right, so there is still time to donate. Okay, you can even donate, of course, after the event is over. CompassionateCareOfCarpinteria.org is where you can sign in and make donations. If you feel comfortable writing a check, by all means, write a check. and send it to Compassionate Care of Carpinteria.
And then, of course, last of all, the book of Cinder, The Wild and Precious Life, is available online, and 25% of the proceeds will go to CCC. So please, get out there and purchase that most amazing book. All right, we're going to say goodnight to you. We're going to take our glasses.
Yep,
Hope
and
you
I
all
hope you have one
a-
as well.
Exactly. And so, good night, everybody. Thank you again for being with us. Until next year, when we meet in person.
Thanks for tuning in.
Good night.